And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. They went up into an upper room. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. They went up, and when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. They went up into an upper room.
Lion of Judah Society.
Psalm 5.
מזמור למנצח אל הנחילות מזמור לדוד 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 מזמור לדוד.
Give ear to my words, O Lord. O Lord.
אמרי האזינה אדוני 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 אדוני.
Consider my meditation, my meditation, my meditation, my meditation, my meditation.
בינה הגיגי 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 הגיגי.
Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. My King and my God. My King and my God.
מלכי ואלוהי 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 ואלוהי.
For unto thee will I pray, will I pray, will I pray.
כי אליך אתפלל 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 אתפלל.
My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue. Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield, as with a shield, as with a shield, as with a shield, as with a shield.
When they were coming,
shield,
they went up
shield,
into an upper room.
Shield, shield.
They went up into an upper room.
Shield,
Upper room.
shield, shield, shield.
מזמור למנצח אל הנחילות מזמור לדוד. אמרי האזינה אדוני בינה הגיגי. הקשיבה לכל שבעי מלכי ואלוהי, כי אליך אתפלל. אדוני בוקר תשמע קולי, בוקר אערוך לך ואצפה. כי לא אל חפץ רשע אתה, לא יגורך רע. לא יתייצבו הוללים לנגד עיניך, שנאת כל פועלי עוול. תאבד דוברי כזב, איש דמים ומרמה יתעב אדוני. ואני ברוב חסדך אבוא ביתך, אשתחווה אל היכל קודשך ויראתך. אדוני, נחני וצדקתך למען שוררי, הישר לפני דרכך, כי אין בפיהו נכונה, קרבם אבות, קבר פתוח גרונם, לשונם יחליקון. האשימם אלוהים, יפלו ממועצותיהם, ברוב פשעיהם הדיחהו, כי מרו בך, וישמחו כל חוסבך, לעולם ירמננו, ותסך עלימו, ויעלצו בך אוהבי שמך. כי אתה תברך צדיק אדוני, קצינה רצון תעתרנו.
When they were coming, they went up into an upper room.
Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God. For unto thee will I pray. My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue. Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in thee. For thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield, 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 shield.
And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. They went up into an upper room.
When I say more, you say fire. More fire.
Lion of Judah Society.
Shalom, Chaverim. Here we have today's daily psalm. We have Psalm.
Psalm 5.
מזמור למנצח אל הנחילות מזמור לדוד.
Give ear to my words, O Lord.
אמרי האזינה אדוני.
Consider my meditation.
בינה הגיגי.
Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God.
מלכי ואלוהי.
For unto thee will I pray.
כי אליך אתפלל.
My voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. For thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. The foolish shall not stand in thy sight. Thou hatest all workers of iniquity. Thou shalt destroy them that speak leasing. The Lord will abhor the bloody and deceitful man. But as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. For there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue. Destroy thou them, O God. Let them fall by their own counsels. Cast them out in the multitude of their transgressions, for they have rebelled against thee. But let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Let them ever shout for joy, because thou defendest them. Let them also that love thy name be joyful in it. Thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield, as with a shield, as with a shield, as with a shield, 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 shield.
And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room. They went up into an upper room, upper room, upper room, upper room.
When I say more, you say fire. More fire.
And when they were come in, they went up into an upper room, upper room, upper. They went up into an upper room, upper room, upper room, upper room.
Erev Tov, good evening, Erev Tov, Laila Tov, good night, Boker Tov, good morning, and a Shabua Tov. Yes, 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 peace to those who love, peace and no peace to the wicked, saith Yahweh Eloheinu. Yes, yes, greetings, shalom, chaverim, shalom. So right here, today's daily psalm, we had a morning prayer, Psalm 5, Mizmor Hey, fifth psalm here in the Psalter. The psalm here themed a morning prayer. The fifth psalm right here, according to the royal order, right after the order of Melchizedek, the fifth psalm. So right there, that was the dove. What was the dove called? Bakir, kind of a Sunday morning dove right there, a morning prayer, first day, that tune right there. Not for the first day only, but that's the dub right there, Bakir. I thought we just share that at the opening here. So Mizmor Hey, here in the first book of the Psalter, the Sefer Tehillim, we have Psalm 5, the fifth psalm, the V psalm, today's daily psalm. The tone of this psalm is said to be like that of the preceding. So for Psalm 5, we have Mizmor Dalet. So Psalm 4 is themed an evening prayer in relief. Now, what's interesting is the psalm before that, Psalm 3 that we had here in the season, is a morning prayer in distress. So from the third psalm, a morning prayer in distress, to the fourth psalm, Mizmor Gimel, to Mizmor Dalet, the fourth psalm, an evening prayer in relief. So a morning prayer in distress, Psalm 3, Psalm 4, an evening prayer in relief. Brings us here to the fifth psalm, right? Mizmor Hey, Psalm 5, a morning prayer. So the tone of this psalm, of this Mizmor, of this chant, this Isis, is like that of the preceding, Psalm 4. And the circumstances are somewhat similar circumstances. So what are these circumstances, Chaverim? the circumstances here. Well, let's just look at Psalm 4 for just a brief moment. There's a short note here in the Sefer Tehillim, in the Psalms of the Book of Psalms, an evening prayer in relief, Mizmor Dalet, fourth Psalm, says the same spirit pervades this psalm as the former psalm. So the former psalm to Psalm 4 is Psalm 3. And it says, and they should be read together, read and studied together. Psalm 3, Psalm 4. The writer now feels here in Psalm 4 that his reliance, his assurance upon Elohim, upon the Creator, upon the source, in his time of trouble has been justified, has been made righteous, was the right choice. The words justice and justified, as justified and righteous Hebraically is like the same word, or vindicated, even in the sense of vindicated. So we have these words in English like justified, right? Justified, justified. And then we have righteous. And then we have the term vindicated. Hebraically, right? In the HD, Hebraically, these are the same word, the same sense, the tzedek and the tzadak sense, right? So in his time of trouble, his reliance, even we can say spiritually, iretically, his dependence, right, on the spirit of truth, upon Yahweh Eloheinu, in his time of trouble has been justified, been vindicated. And a sense of tranquility now possesses him. This is the summary note to Psalm 4, and then we look at Psalm 3, because as Psalm 47:7 says, to give praise with understanding, right? To understand overstand what the eyes is, what the Mizmor is for. So here in Psalm 3, Mizmor Gimel, a morning prayer in distress. And it says here that the psalm speaks for itself. So even though today's daily psalm is Psalm 5, reason why here in the study, to show ourselves approved, we're looking at, Psalm 3 and Psalm 4, is because Hebraically these psalms in the Psalter in the present order, right, have been ordered for a reason. Why have they been put into this order? So we have Psalm 3, Psalm 4, and Psalm 5. As it says, the tone of Psalm 5 is like that of the preceding, right? And circumstances and the situation is somewhat similar. In Psalm 4, it says the same spirit pervades this psalm as the former. And that brings us here to Psalm 3. So Psalm 3 is a morning prayer in distress, stress and distress. The notes here in the Sefer Tehillim, the Psalter says, the Psalm, the Mizmor, speaks for itself. Mizmor Gimel, Psalm 3, the third Psalm, Psalm I. It is a sublime expression of trust, the theme of trust, right? Truth and trust in Elohim, right? In the Creator, in the Judge, and the Almighty Power's help when beset by relentless enemies. A close connection with Psalm 4 is discernible. So between Psalm 3, the morning prayer in distress, and then we get to Psalm 4, an evening prayer in relief, and then Psalm 5, we have a morning prayer. So the close connection between Psalm 3 and Psalm 4 being discernible, hopefully, Chabarim, Talmudim, right? Hopefully you'll discern it, right? And the latter, right, is to be understood as its sequel. So when we get to Psalm 3, the morning prayer in distress, then Psalm 4 is that evening prayer. So sometimes, there'll be days like that, morning prayer in distress, but then we have an evening prayer in relief. It says furthermore from Psalm 3, right, in the KJV at verse 5, where it says, I lay me down and I sleep. I awake, for Yahweh sustained me, right? For Yahweh sustained me. Here, it can be deduced that we have here a morning prayer, right? A morning prayer. So it's like after, you rest and you rise up in the boker in the morning, right? This is a good word to say. Like I lay me down, like I've laid, actually in the Hebrew, instead of lay me down in the present tense, it's ani shakabti. Ani shakabti wa ishana. Wa ishana. Ani shakabti. Ani I shakabti. I had laid down. Wa ishana. And slept. And slept. Mine and sleep. Mine I had laid down and I sleep. I awaked. So here we have Hag Itzoti. I had awaked. Mine like the morning, in the morning, something to be said in the morning. Why? Ki Yahweh Yismekeni. Yismeke has sustained, supported Ani. Ki, because I was able to lay down, I was able to sleep. Ani Shakabti. Wa Ishana. Right? Hag is ot. I awaked. Why? For or because Ki Yahweh, because he who he be, Yismeke, supported, sustained Ani. Ki Yahweh Yismekeni, for he has sustained me. So from this we can discern, right, a morning prayer after a night of rest, giving thanks for having, come through and arise and shine. However, when we get to Psalm 4, right, Psalm 4 in the King James Version at verse 8, in Psalm 4 at verse 8, it says, in peace will I both lay me down and sleep. For thou, Yahweh alone, some say only or alone, makest me dwell in safety or confidently or dwell in security. So here in Psalm 4 at verse 8, we have even almost like a nighttime prayer, like a prayer before going to rest. Right? Bishalom, in peace. Bishalom, Yachdav, in peace together, both or together, Yahdal, being united like as one, Yahdal, Eshakava, Eshakaba, Eshkaba, I Shakab, I will, let me lay down, right? Bishalom, Yahdal, in peace, right? Let me lay down, Eshakaba, with Ishan, and sleep. Let me lay down and sleep. May I lay down and sleep. Shalom, Yahdal, Eshakaba, where Ishan. Why? Ki ata. Because. Ki for because. Ki ata. Because ata. Because you. Because the I. Speaking to Yahweh Elohai. Right? Ki ata Yahweh le badad. For thee, and no one else. Because thee, O he who be who ye be, live badad. Live badad. Live badad alone. Right? For thee I, O he who be who he be, alone live badad, la betach, in safety, for security, securely, confidently, la betach, to shebe, causes me to dwell, to shebeni, for thou alone, right? O Yahweh, makest me to dwell securely, makest me to dwell in safety. So there, when we look at Psalm 4, we touched on this, I think, a couple of days ago, right? Psalm 4 in the King James Version at verse 8, KJV wise, this suggests a night prayer, right? So in Psalm 3, right, what is suggested is as a morning rise prayer or word of gratitude, right? A word of gratitude, a prayer. In Psalm 3, right? In Psalm 3, KJV at verse 5. I lay me down, right? I lay me down. I've laid down, right? And sleep, right? I awaked, for Yahweh Yismekeni has sustained me, right? And then in Psalm 4, KJV wise at verse 8, a nighttime prayer. Bishalom Yahdal Eshikabah Ishan. Ki ata Yahweh lebadad labetach toshebeni. In peace and shalom will I both, Yahdal, will I both lay down and sleep for thee, because thee, O he who be, ki ata Yahweh lebadad, alone, labetach, for surety, for surety, for safety, securely. Toshabeini labetach, toshabeini, for thou makest me, right, dwell in safety for thee alone. So right here, the connection with our psalm here, the fifth psalm. So the first of the two psalms, Psalm 3. So we have like a trinity of psalm, a trifecta of psalms here, right? In the opening of the book of Psalms, the Sefer Tehillim, we have Psalm 3, morning prayer in distress. And within that, right, we have a word, an invocation upon rising, right? Psalm 3, verse 5. And then in Psalm 4, the very next psalm, at verse 8 in the King James Version, suggests a nighttime prayer. Now that laid me down to sleep. Some people do that, but this here scriptural. So we both have upon rising, a prayer, a short prayer, and upon laying down to rest and to sleep, a short prayer, respectively, in Psalm 3, verse 5, and in Psalm 4, verse 8. So the first of the two Psalms, Psalm 3, the morning prayer in distress, right, is accordingly a cry, a shout out of the heart, a cry called forth by some present trouble, difficulty, some danger. And the second Psalm, Psalm 4, is a song of relief, right, uttered when the peril seemed less imminent. So the morning prayer, distress, the evening prayer in relief. The circumstance is specified, right, in the superscription. So since we have Psalm 5 here, right, and Psalm 5, right, says that the tone of this psalm is like that of the preceding, and the circumstances are somewhat similar, right? So therefore, seeing that we have this trifecta, this trinity, these three psalms, Psalm 3, 4, and 5, it's kind of interesting. A morning prayer in distress, and evening prayer in relief. And here with Psalm 5, a morning prayer. So the context of these three psalms, right, is actually based on the context of Psalm 3. So what the Psalm 3 says in the superscription, since it says the circumstances are specified in the superscription. Superscription is usually in the King James Version Bibles. It's not included, it's often not numbered, but it's actually that superscription. For example, Psalm 3, a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son, Mizmor le David, Bebarcho mipnei Absalom beno. Right? So it's a psalm of David, a Davidic psalm, Mizmor le David, when he fled. Bebarcho. Barcho. Barcho. It's like it comes from Barcho. Barcho come from the word barach. Barach. It's not like we say brach. Brach. He was out of here. Brach. Right? But here it says Barcho, when he fled Mipnei, from the face of Mipnei Absalom, from the face of Absalom. Right? Absalom beno. So this is the circumstance. So these three psalms, you can point it to a historical timeline of Second Samuel, right? The events that occurred in 2 Samuel chapter 15 to chapter 17. 2 Samuel chapter 15, these three chapters in 2 Samuel chapter 15, right, to chapter 17, right, based on the superscription when he fled from Absalom, Bibarcho mipnei Absalom. So this is the context here, even for today's daily psalm here, seeing that the tone of the psalm is like that of the preceding Psalm 3 and Psalm 4, right? And the circumstances are somewhat similar. So what are the circumstances here? Daily psalm here in the season, right? The speaker is exposed. The speaker is exposed to danger from treacherous, malicious, vicious, right? Treacherous, malicious foes, right here, right? These are the circumstances, right? He offers a morning prayer, right? A morning prayer, boker, right? Tefillah, right? A morning prayer, morning tefillah before before going to the sanctuary, before going into the holy place. In that, here in Psalm 5, Mizmor Hey, in that he and I expresses his and our conviction, right? That Yahweh Eloheinu, he who be who he be, right? Who he be the one who hates evil, hates right? Or the rara, right? Evil, hurt, right? Will not allow wrongdoers to triumph. The righteous, the tzaddik, the righteous one, and the tzaddikim, the righteous ones, right, may therefore rely, right, or deep end, right, on spirit and in truth, and upon him, upon him, with confidence, right, always faithful, right, always sure. So here, this gives us a general context right here to today's daily psalm that we have before us, Psalm 5, a morning prayer. So let's touch on this a little bit of it right here. We do have this Torah reading and feeding, right, here in the season, right? We have Abraham, right, Sarah, right, first of the three of the patriarchs and the respective matriarchs, and here we have his son Yitzhak, right, and Rivka, right, and then we have the twins Esau and Yaakov, right. So here, as you see on the screen, to the chief musician, right, the opening superscription, that's superscription right there to the chief musician, KJV wise, upon it says Nehilot, or here in the script, Lamnatseyach, El ha nehilot, El ha nechilot, on the nechilot, Mizmor le David, upon the nechilot. And so you know how we do, right? First things first, like even when we look at this psalm here, right? What's the context of it, right? Why was it put here, right? Why does the superscription read that? Other superscriptions like Psalm 3 that gives us the context of this third of the Trinity of these psalms here, the morning prayer in distress. It says this is a psalm of David when he fled from Absalom, his son. Now here it says to the chief musician upon Nechilot. I think there's an interesting little commentary that we have. Right? We have an audible, but since we're here right here live, we just like to go through it live, just go through the flow of it right here. But here, let's just break down and build on this first verse here. Also, before we even go there, right, let's look at this right here. Some more notes, a summary in Hebrew, verse 1 is the designation to the leader. So this is interesting. The early Psalms, and some of these notes, like the K and D notes we have here in the My Sword, right, software right here, is telling us, right, that when you look at the English translation, right, the superscription is not added as a verse, but in the Hebrew, the superscription, the part to the chief musician, for the leader, the chief musician, a Psalm of David, and other additional information. This is often in the Hebrew, right, in the Hebrew manuscripts included as the first verse. So think about it, from the Hebrew perspective, that there is the first verse, but in most of the Bibles, the King James Bibles, some Bibles, they just take it out completely. Others, like the KJV, they keep it like really, really, really small. But most of us, if we don't really know, we'll avoid that information there, right? But that's an important part, right, of giving praises with understanding. So in the Hebrew, verse 1 is a designation to the leader or the chief musician, as we have it in the King James Version. And from then onward, verse 1 to 12 in the English translation, right? So in the English translation, the KJV, verses 1 to 12, right? It disconnects the proper first verse, the superscription, right? So we compare that with the Hebrew. In the Hebrew, verses 1 to 12, in the Hebrew, we verses 2 to 13. Just want to point it out. That's why sometimes when we're giving numberings, we'll be like, in the Hebrew version, this is where it would be, like 3 and 6. Psalm 3, verse 6 would be the Hebrew, right? In the English, it'll be Psalm 3, verse 5. Just to kind of, point it out right there. So here, notice right here, as we have our themes, so when we study these things, we can find like the notes say, yeah, morning prayer, and we can just accept that. But as we actually study the psalm, we see that truly, yes, this is a morning prayer, right? A morning prayer or a dawning prayer, shacharit, as you say, the dawn, shacharit, or the boker, the day, but the shacharit, this is a shacharit tefillah before going to the bait, right, of Elohim, to the house of God, going to the proverbial Beitel, right, Bethel, right, or Beit literally is house of El, Beit Elohim, right. Here, the evening prayer, right, that's Psalm 4, the previous psalm that we just touched on, the evening prayer. So these three psalms, 3, 4, 5, morning prayer, distress, evening prayer, relief, Psalm 4. Here, Psalm 5, a shacharit tefillah, another morning prayer. So the evening prayer, previous Psalm 4, is followed by a second morning prayer. Right. So I'm sharing a note here, but I have other notes. Right. That's a little different than these notes. But why we trust these notes is because when there's a right point that has evidence is pointing out, and we can, put our attention on it, right? So we can know the truth for ourselves. So it says it's like the former, and it draws to a close, right, with this key phrase here. Remember, we were talking about in Psalm 3, right? In Psalm 3, well, actually Psalm 4, verse 8 in the King James Version, right? And we said that is what's suggested right there is like a nighttime prayer. It says, for thou, Kianta, I will both lay me down, right, in peace, Bishalom Yachdav, Eshekabah, Weishan, in peace and shalom will I both together lay me down and sleep. Kianta, Yahweh, for Ata. So what you see right there in the Hebrew, key, reading from right to left, key, translated as for, or key because, right? Because, for you, for thee in the old KJV, for thee, or because thou, because the I, because you, ki, ata, because thee, Yahweh, or he who he be, libadad, alone, right? Labetach, toshabeni. For thou alone makest me to dwell securely, confidently, in safety. So you can see right here the 4 and 8, right? Right? It's linking the 4 and 8 right here. This is the verse right here, 4 and 8, right? Linking this verse right here. Now you see what it says 4 and 9, because here we have to compare the King James Version, and we're looking at the actual, like the Hebrew, the available manuscripts, right? So in the Hebrew, it'll be verse 9. We see 4 and 9 reading from right hand to left. Bishalom, Yachdao, Eshekabah, Ishan. Now, modern Hebrew, they'll probably read a little, they do, it's like Bishalom, Yachdav, Bishalom, Yachdav, Eshekavah, Ishan. But the ancient pointing, Bishalom Yachdao, Eshekabah, Ishan, Kiata, Yahweh lebadad, Labetach, Toshabeini. Right? So that's a verse right there. And now here, this is comparable here with our psalm right here. Right? You see where it says 5:13? See what it says 5:13? In the King James Version of the Bible, that would be verse 12. Just to point it out. That will be verse 12, where it says, for thou dost bless the righteous. You dost bless the righteous, O Yahweh. Thou, thee, right, dost encompass him with favor as, or like as, with a shield. So the Hebrew there, let me highlight it so you'll see the part here. So you can follow along right here. Let's go here. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, let's scroll down here. Here we go. So the part that's highlighted right there, that says 5:13, that's in the Hebrew numbering. You can then look at the English translation, right, in KJV in verse 12, where it says, Kiata Tibarek, Tibarekas Adik, Yahweh, Ka Sina Ratzon, Ta Itarenu, Ta Itarenu, right? Okay, that will crown, encompass, or crown him. Now, some translations will bring it out as For thou with favor, where it says with favor, right? With favor, right? It says Sina, as a Sina. A Sina is like a shield. We're going to touch on that. That's the last verse right there. But just to bring out, this matter that we have in these Psalms, like key phrases, because of you, because you. Why all of this? Why all of this? Right? It says, so shall all those take refuge. So shall all those that take refuge in thee, right? KJV verse 11, right? Rejoice. They shall ever shout, yeah, right? For joy, for thou shalt shelter them. May they also that love thy name exalt, jump for joy, right? Exalt in thee. That brings us here. Ki ata, right? Ki ata, because thee and none other. For thee, O he who be, and none other. Ki ata tibarek, Tibarek, Ki ata Tibarek, for you, for thee, right? Tibarek blesses, Tibarek. So speaking to a man, speaking to a male, and saying, because you bless, Ki ata Tibarek, Ki ata Tibarek, modern Hebrew, Ki ata Tibarek, right? Tzaddik, for you bless the Tzaddik. You bless the Tzaddik, the righteous, like the righteous one, right? For thee, bless the righteous one. You empower to prosper the Tzaddik, right? Yahweh, oh he who be, Kasina, as a shield, right? As a shield, right? Now, this shield right here, what's interesting about this word shield? Though this is at the end of the song, and usually we like to go through and get to this right there. But the word Sina, right? Shield is mentioned twice, right, in the song. But as we study, we get to recognize that the shield here in the final verse is the Sina. We call it Sina, the Sina. The Sina is the largest kind of shield. There's the Magain. The Magain is like a short, right? Is like a smaller, not short, but smaller shield. This here, the Sina, is the largest size shield that would cover the whole body, right? Cover the whole body. So even in the use of Hebrew words, we get to recognize chant. Here in this verse where it says Yahweh Katsina, or he who be, like a shield, like the largest shield, right? Not kumagain, not the magain, right? But the sina. The magain is like a buckler, it's like it's a shorter shield, almost like a shield that a warrior could hold on their forearm, right, to block certain attacks. But the sina here is the large shield, right? It's like the full body, right? The full body shield, right? So it's saying that he who be, right, got you covered. Right, it says Yahweh Kasina, full body shield. Right, it says Ratzon, right, for you will crown, you will encircle, right, you will encircle the righteous, right, you will encircle the righteous, circle the righteous one, right, as with a shield, the shield of the largest size. Yahweh is a complete guidance, and here with this final verse here, a complete protection. So just to kind of just bring out a little bit of the note so that when we give praise, right? Because it's beautiful when you start to see the connection. Say, oh, yeah, I did read about that over there. Word. So that means at this time, Dawid, right, in that psalm over there where he's talking about that, that's because you went through that situation. Like you love a song, right? There's a song you really love it, right? It not just touches you, but it encourages, it strengthens you. But then you find out that the person, when they was experiencing something. And when you find out about the experience, you'd be like, wow, me too. You know what I mean? Or, yeah, I went through something like that. And this is why I like this tune. It speaks to you. So this is why we study to show ourselves approved as psalm based on the precept in Psalm 47 and 7. So you can give praise of understanding. Now, the situation is different, right? Remember these three Psalms here, Psalm 3, Psalm 4, and here's Psalm 5. The situation is different from that in Psalm 3. Remember, Psalm 3 is a morning prayer, right? It's like this Psalm. This Psalm 5 is also a shacharit. It's like a dawning, a break of dawn prayer, a morning prayer, right? A dawning prayer. So was Psalm 3, but the situation is different. You see when we're talking about understanding the previous, the bina, bean and bina, keeping a bean and bina, bean to discern, to understand, bina, understanding, overstanding, just understanding or overstanding, like both of them are morning prayers. Right? So this is how they are similar, right? But they are not the same, right? There we had a morning prayer or a dawning prayer, Psalm 3, in distress. So in that psalm, David is fleeing, as it says in the superscription, right? Psalm to chief musician, right? The Psalm of David, right? When he fled, Bibarcho mipenei Abshalom ben No, when he fled from the face of Absalom, his son, or fled, from the presence of Mipaneh, right? So in that psalm, Psalm 3, Mizmor Gimel, David is fleeing because it says, Bid Barcho, Bid when Barcho, when he brach, Barcho, when he fled, right? David brach, fled. Here in Psalm 5, he is in Yerushalayim. He's in Yerushalayim, right? And anticipates going up. He anticipates making an aliyah, going up, right? Anticipates going up, right, to the temple, to the Heikal Avodah, right, the temple service, the worship service. If this psalm, right here, Mizmor, also belongs to the time of the rebellion of Absalom, or they say Absalom, right, it must have been written when the fire that afterward broke forth was already smothering in secret. So they're saying that this psalm bears a lot in common with Psalm 3. And here we have a morning prayer, evening prayer, morning prayer. There are a lot of similarities to the content and theme. So if it is to that period of the rebellion of Absalom, you can find that in 2 Shemuel, 2 Samuel, chapters 15 to chapter 17. It's like a little series there. No, for real, it's good. Check it out. Right. So if it refers to that, therefore it must have been written, right, based on internal evidence, right? Must have been written, right, when the fire that afterward broke forth was already smoldering. There was like a secret conspiracy. There was like a creeping coup against Dawid HaMelech, like there was a creeping coup against the greater David, the greater son.
When I say more, you say fire. More fire.
Let's check this out right here, because we was touching on the first verse, the superscription, right? It says Il ha nechilot, right? That's the nechilot part. Il ha nechilot, Il ha nechilot. So let's ask ourselves, what is the nechilot? We have a midrash on this. There's a whole midrash, darash. He says to see a whole study on it. But let's go over here so you can see what we're talking about right here in the opening verse. Let's put on the Strongs, right, for the KJV. Here it says to the chief musician, La Menatzeyach, right? Now, in the King James Version, it says upon. Now, in the Hebrew, it says il nechilot, ha nechilot, il ha nechilot, right? But they translate it as upon. Why do we make that mention? Because it says two. It says two. Like il mean two, like it says, and Yahweh spoke il Moshe, right? And Moshe spoke il Aharon. He spoke to Aharon, right? And the prophet spoke il B'nai Yisrael, to the sons of Israel, the children of Israel. You know what I'm saying? So the il has a sense of like the lid, the lamed, like 2, 4, right? Like 2 in that sense, So it's not all mean up on, right? And then another thing missing right here is that in the Hebrew is ha nechilot, but here they just have nechilot. So we're saying that there's something wrong with the translation when we compare with the original. But let's just zoom in on what nechila. Nechila is singular. Nechilot is plural. Nechila, singular, nechilot, plural. Right? Now they tell us that the meaning is uncertain. Like we said, there's a whole midrash. We have like a whole midrash. Maybe we'll share a little bit of it right here. Probably do this right here. Share a little bit of it with you. Let's see, Psalm 5. We have the midrash right here. Yeah, it's a full midrash, but so we can bring this out right here. And I see some of the notes are already, linked with it. So what is this? They say meaning uncertain, may be a name of melody, it may be a musical instrument, and it says as found only in the title of Psalm 5 right here. Right? Now they say probably denominative from, let's look at root words, Khalil. Khalil. What is Khalil? A pipe or flute. Right? A pipe or flute, right? So some translators, if you go into any study, basic study, would say like this is the wind instruments, likely or probably flutes. In contrast, right, to the bingino, the negina, right, the string instruments that's mentioned in the heading or the superscription of Psalm 4. So Psalm 4, right, it says in Psalm 4, it says lamanatseach, binginot, binginot, lamanatseach, Binginot or Binginot, as we brought out earlier when we addressed Psalm 4, it says Mizmor le David, a psalm of David. So this will be brought out as to the chief musician, being Neginot, with string music on the Neginot, Binginot, Mizmor, right? Psalm of, right? Le David, or a psalm of David for David, a psalm of David. So here we have the Khalil, right? Right? The Khalil, right? Perforated. But what's interesting about this here, that although it's often taken, right, to be the so-called like flute, right? Let's see if we have this here. Okay, no, boom. Let's go back one. Let me share this right here because some of the notes are gonna bring it out, but we want to just kind of like just get just get to the point, like, but to show why the study is important, right? So we have Nahil, let's see, na what's it? Hanachil. I'm trying to see if the word. There we go. Nahal, right? Nahala. So we have here Nahil, Nachila, and in Hebrew we have Nahala. Right? There we go. You see Nahala. So some take it that the word Nachila is linked with Khalil. So the word for pipe or flute, Khalil, right? But then we have Nechila, right? Nechila, Khalil. But others of us, we see that within this word, right, since it's not really on nechilot as though it's musical instruments, but in the Hebrew it's il ha nechilot. It is actually two, like to say two, like 2, 4, 2, right? The nechilot, right? The nechilas. We're looking at the word nachal. Now Nahala, okay, here they have Nahala as a valley right here. But let's go, right? But look at, there we go. That's our Nahala, the Nahala. You see what Nahala? Oh, let's clear the screen right here. Boom. It says possession, property, inheritance, heritage, Nahala, right? Often translated as a heritage, right? And often this word Nahala, right? Nachalot. So here, some look at this is for the inheritance, right? Or for the inheritances. So some, in studying the Hebrew, bring out the meaning of El Ha Nachilot, not as up on the flutes, right? Because that would be Al Ha Ha Al Ha Nechilot or Al Ha Chalilot, right? Or Chalilot, since Chalil is flute. You see the difference, right? So there's a big difference, in the way it's translated, although traditionally ones take it as, up on the flutes, right? Like on wind instruments. That might be the case, but there's definitely a direct link with Nachala, right? If this is plural, it'll be Nachilot, Nachilot, similar to Ilha Nechilot, Ilha Nechilot, Ilha Nachalot. You see the similarity there, right? Possession, right? Inheritance, portion, like one's portion, right? Something inherited, right? Occupancy, like a heirloom. It's in general sense. It's often used in the scripture for the heritage, like the heritage of Israel is like the land in that context, the estate, the patrimony. Who is your father? The patrimony or the portion, right? That which is inherited. So just to bring out this sense of, right, two or four the inheritances. So some bring this out as having to do with that sense, that context, that idea, right? So I just want to just show that and share that. Let's go back here. We're going through the words right there, right? And this is where this was about to go, right? And they're seem to break this down right here. Here it says, if nachilot, you see what it says, if nachilot, right there at the top, came from Nahal that we just touched on, to inherit, right? It might, according to biblical use of the verb, signify inheritances, right? How the word is used. Nechilot, right? Nachalot, nechilot, inheritances. Or in some of the study teachings, the Talmud and other studies, the word Talmud means to study. Just have the right study, good education, there's bad education. But here, some link it to the word swarms, right? And in fact, swarm of bees, right? In Arabic, nachal, right? So nachilot ought then to be the beginning of a popular melody. So trying to figure out what is this to the, it's like saying this is to the chief musician, it is to the nechilot. So what is the nechilot? Is it to the flutes, not on the flutes or by way of the flutes? It's il ha nechilot. Is it to the inheritances? Does it have something to do with inheritances? Right? Here, this is seeking to break down that it could then be referring to the beginning of a popular melody. It's like even nowadays with reggae, and I remember, well, back in the days, even today with some like music, sometimes there's certain rhythms, like there's certain B-sides, like on this rhythm, on this melody, on that melody. You know what I mean? So anyway, just to bring it out, the connections and trying to figure this one out, the nechilot, right? Nechilot. So here it has chalalim. So in the Hebrew, right, chalalim, it is like for the word for the flutes. So the use of the flute in the service of the sanctuary. Let's go over here. So some might ask the question, did they even use a flute? Right, that has a kind of a whistling sound. Did they even use a flute according to the scripture? Well, there is the attestation, right, that the flute was used in the service, right, of the sanctuary of the holy place. We have it in Isaiah 30:29, in 1 Samuel 10:5, and in 1 Kings 1:40, right? And then there's more on the use of the flute during the second temple times, the second temple times, right? So that's why I was touching on right there that it says il instead of all, right? So over here is all, right? This is all. All means on. So sometimes when it's saying like on this instrument, on that instrument, it might say be, by way of, or all, up upon, right? But what it has in the verse is not all, but it's actually el. El, like 2, 4, el, right? El. That's why it says it'll be, was then more appropriate than all. So based on, they say the flute right here, they say it could be, right? So just to kind of break that down, but the point about inheritance, just keep that in mind, because the nachilot and the nachilot and the nachala, the word for inheritance, is very, very close right there. But be that as it may, right? Let's come out of this for a moment, just getting to some of the opening introductory notes right here, here, just a little brief. Let us touch on a. All right, let's touch on boom, 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 boom. 1 to 3. Let's touch on verses 1 to 3 from KJV. So we bring this out right here based on comparing even with the Authorized Revised Amharic Bible. They also have it there, I think, washent, bewashent, like on the flutes, right? But then that's like the overt meaning, but there could be another aspect of the meaning concerning inheritances, right? We'll touch on that maybe if we get a chance right here. But let's open up with this three verses right here. So we have the speaker being exposed to danger here in Psalm 5. Right, just want to touch on the psalm early on right here in Psalm 5, being exposed to danger from treacherous foes. Right, treacherous foes. He offers a morning prayer before going to the sanctuary. Right, in that he expresses his conviction. Right, that Yahweh, he who be, he who hates evil, will not allow wrongdoers to triumph. The righteous, therefore, Sadiq, the righteous, right, may therefore rely even deep in, right, upon him with confidence, assurity, always faithful, always sure. So right here, these three verses, inclusive of the superscription. Verse 1, right here, to chief musician upon Nechilot, a psalm of David. Give ear to my words, Yahweh. Consider my meditation, my meditation. Here, la menatzeach ilha nechilot, mizmor le David. Amarai ha'azina Yahweh, bina hagigi. Bina, interesting. We was touching on Bina, right? The whole sense of understanding, right? Understanding wisdom, understanding on the previous Wisdom Wednesday, right? And when we spoke about wisdom, we can't forget like her sister, her sister woman, proverbially speaking, right? And that's Bina. So there's Chokmah, right? And Bina. It says that wisdom is the principal thing. Get wisdom. And with all you're getting, get Bina, right? Bina is understanding. Because we're touching on Psalm 94, I think 94 verse 7, with Yah hidden in Psalm 94, as well as verse 12 on a previous podcast. So it's interesting here, this word here pops up again. So we see similar words, similar terms. So hopefully the Chabarim, even, paying attention, and as we study, ones who pick up on more here, this is Bina, right? There's Bina, right? Now, Bina here in this sense is when it says to consider or overstand. Now we're talking about understand, discerning, understanding, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, that trifecta right there, that trinity right there, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. So here, this is what would be understand. When it says consider, right? Over here it says consider, right? It's from that being, right? Keeping in the being, right? Keeping in the being to discern, to understand, to overstand. Often, sometimes translates consider. Then we went to Matthew, went to junior high for the disciples, the Talmudim, to Matthew chapter 13, right? To discern, to understand, and then the Kal, you see, to perceive. Was it seeing, see, but they don't perceive, hearing, hear, but they don't understand. There's no bina, no bina. They don't keep it a being. They can't understand, right? To know, right, with the mind, right? Even with the mind's eye, right? To mark, to give heed to distinguish, right? So he's breaking down on like what is understanding, right? What is it, right? Its ability to discern, right? To use it as an example, two things that are similar, like Psalm 3, right? And here with Psalm 5, they're both morning prayers, but it's also to discern, right, how they are different, how they're similar, but not the same, right? So here, in this opening word, give ear to my words, or Yahweh, consider my meditation. This is the morning prayer. This is how it opens. Amarai, my words, right? Amarai, my words. Ha'azina, ha'azina, the command, ha'azina, to give ear to azan, ha'azina. So the root word is azan, but when you know how to build in Hebrew, right, ha'azina is in the hefil sense. Ha'azina, so we have azan, right? Then the pattern, right? Ha'azina. So ha'azina is like saying broaden the ear, right? Broaden the ear, right? In the sense of to hear, to listen to, right? Listen to tefillah, listen to prayer, right? So we want to say, well, how do we know it's a prayer right here? Well, we study the words and how the words are used Hebraically, right? Literally, this means to expand or broaden out the ear, right? Right? Give ear. That's why the English, check out how the English is. In the English, we know the phrase as like give ear to what I'm saying, right? It's like literally somebody would, if they're giving ear, they could literally, right, to describe it as taking their hand and broadening out the ear, like, putting their hand behind the ear, give ear, right? Broaden the ear, perceive by the ear. Amarai hazina Yahweh. Bina. He's saying to understand, to discern, to distinguish, right? To comprehend by understand. Hagigi. Bina hagigi. Right? Understand my hagigi. What's the hagig? Hagig, haga. You ever heard in the Psalms in the Bible, higayon? You ever come across this phrase, higayon? Right? Higayon is a meditation. It comes from the word hagig. Hagigi is my whispering, my musing. You're going through something and you're kind of like, speaking, to yourself. You're asking yourself questions. You're asking God. You're asking, you're like, what's going on? Why is this going on? Why is it because of this? Maybe I should have done that. You know what I mean? That sense there, right? To murmur. But even in that murmuring, though it's a meditation, it's a musing, you can also be complaining. Now, why did I have to do this again? Oh man, I did this, but such and such. But it's not really. You're going through all this meditation. Even for oneself, sometimes there's a lot that you're saying to even yourself, right? You're trying to get it out, right? In that sense. But this is why Dawid here says, Bina, right? Bina, to discern what I'm really saying. I'm saying a whole bunch of stuff, right? I'm musing, I'm murmuring, I'm complaining. You know what I mean? But you understand what I'm really saying, right? May you overs. You overs what I mean? Like they said a lot, but I get it. I get it in a sense. Get what I'm saying in my meditation. All right. So understand the context of the meditation right here. So the hagigi, my whispering, my musing, hagigi. Let's go to the root right here from haga, right? To moan, to growl, to utter, to muse, to mutter, to meditate, right? And in that, what should I do? If I do it like this, then such and such. Well, maybe okay, yeah. This is that right there. I just wanted to bring it out so you know that, right? That's the haga, right? Haga, right? In a sense, it's like to roar, to growl. Oh man, not again, man. What should I do? If I do it like this, then maybe no, that's not gonna work. You know what I'm saying? That whole idea to utter, to mutter, right? Hagigi, to mutter. You know what I mean? You're almost like muttering to yourself. You're talking to yourself. Whether you're murmuring to yourself. It could be a hagig, right? A higayon could be a good one. You could be like, yeah, this was good. I won't do that like that again. Yeah, right? It's a good hagigi. But sometimes it's a different sort of a hagig. You'd be like, oh man, so what am I gonna do? Pondering, imagining, mourning. But notice as we go on and how it's translated. In some cases, it's study. Sometimes we're studying a situation and trying to study a situation, trying to figure it out. Right? We're talking. Right? We're talking in the spirit. This is the medi. Right? And in that medi, before Yahweh Eloheinu, he's asking Yahweh, he says, Yahweh, consider being hagigi. Right? Yahweh, Bina Hagigi, give ear, broaden your ear to my words. Amarai, Amarai, my Imer, right? My utterance, my speech, right? What I'm saying, right? Amarai, to all I'm saying, right? Broaden your ear to and understand that some of it is my musing, my murmuring, my my kind of my soul talk, my self talk right there. But figure it out, discern what I'm saying right here. It's a lot, it's a much. So the unspoken prayer, right? The Hagig, we can't even call it, right? The unspoken prayer, right? The unspoken tefillah in the recesses of the heart. Sometimes you just all that. There's when you make that sound, there's something behind it, but it's almost like moving at the speed of light, like you really can't, but you feel it right there. Boom. You're asking Yahweh, you figure that out. You know what I'm really saying. Other people, a person that what's wrong? Well, what's wrong? The person next to you, for you to explain, it's like, but Yahweh, he know, right? He can figure that out, right? He can parse it, right? The unspoken prayer in the recesses of the heart, right? But as we showed already, likely it's that whispering, right? The utterance that is inaudible to everyone, right? Except to Yahweh Eloheinu. How do we know this? You remember the action of the mother of Shemuel, right? Hannah. Remember Hannah? Hannah in 1 Samuel, right? Let's go here, right? Hannah in 1 Samuel, right? 1 Samuel chapter what? 1 Samuel chapter 1, of course, right? Shemuel, her son, right? Right here, check this out, right? This gives a perfect example. Now, Hannah, the mother of Shemuel, right, she spake in her heart. Only her lips moved. Only what? Only what? Only her lips moved. But her voice was not heard. Therefore, Eli, right, thought she had been drunken. Eli. Let's go here, Chayle, Ili. Here we go, right here. It says, where he medaberet, and she, where he is the pronoun for she, as who is the pronoun for he, where he medaberet, right? Medaberet, like medaber will be like for a man, medaberet for she, medaberet. Where he medabereta ala libah. Alibaha, right, in her leb, right, her heart, libah, right, rak, only, right, sifateha, right, lips of ha, only her lips, sifateha, naot, right, only her lips were like kind of moving, like quivering, moving, right, naot, right, rak sifateha, naota, Kolah, kolaha, all voice, all is voice, kolah, her voice, kolaha, her voice, yeshamea, was not heard, right? So something heard, Hebrew, yeshamea, lo yeshamea, her voice, wik olaha, lo yeshamea, was not heard, right? Wa Yachshebeha, wa and Yachshebeha, and he thought of her, right? Right? He thought of her, why Yachshebeha, and he, speaking about Ili. It looked like Eli, like God, like my God, Eli, but it's not that E, it's not that Ein, it's Ili, like one who kind of goes up. I'll show it to you. But Eli, the priest at the time, le shikora, shikora. He thought she was shikora. She was drunk. Le shikora. He thought her to be drunk. Wayach shebeha, Iliyah li shikora. He thought that she was, drinking. And we're talking about Aili. Now his is really Aili. Aili means ascension. Aili means, like we said, Aliyah. Aili means to ascend. Right? In English, you might think it means like Aili. Aili is different than Aili. Aili, right? My God, Aili, to ascend. Right? He was the descendant of Aharon, right? And he was the high priest, and he was the shofet. He was the priest, the high priest, the Kohen Gadol, the anointed high priest, and the judge of Yisrael when Samuel entered service. Shemuel entered into the abodah, the service as a child, right? Samuel entered into that service as a child. So this is lofty, ascended, right? Aili, right? Nine. I don't know if you say Eli, but they don't really know what they're talking about. But anyway, he had thought, right, Chashab, he thought that she was Shikora, drunk, Shikora, drunk she, right? So Shikor, drunk he, Shikora, Li Shikora. He thought that she was to drunk, like drunken. He thought that she was a drunken one, right? And then, of course, she explains that, that she's very moved in her heart, her situation. Let me show you right here. And Eili said to her, how long will thou be drunken? Put away thy wine from thee. He never reproved his sons like that. But anyway, that's a whole other story. And Hannah answered and said, no, lo, Adoni. Right? She says, I, a woman of sorrowful spirit, I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my soul. Lifnei Yahweh, right? When it says sorrowful, her spirit, hard of spirit. She said to Eili, the high priest and judge of Israel at the time, count not thy handmaid for a daughter of Belial, of Belial. Beli without Yaal. Don't count your handmaid for a daughter without prophet, right? A worthless daughter, right? A daughter of Belial, of Belial, right? Belial. Beli without Yaal prophet, worth. Belial. For out of the abundance of my complaint, you see the sense? Complaint and grief have I spoken hitherto. So you see the complaint, the meditation, right? Remember what in the psalm right here, the meditation, right? Now here we have siyach, another related kind of meditation, but you get the general context here, right? As it compares with the psalm here. Just lastly, right here, right? Then Eili answered and said, go in peace, and Elohei Yisrael grant thy petition that thou hast asked of him. Now, this is a big thing. This is another related narrative here with Hannah and Eili, the Kohen Gadol at the time, and Shemuel that came into the priesthood, from being a child, because he had two sons, right? Hophni and Phineas. Right? As Vaughn Benjamin said in one of his tunes, wreaking havoc in the priesthood. Right? That's why I said that he never really reproved none of his sons, his two sons, Hophni and Phineas. Right? But anyway, check it out. He answered and said to her, go in peace to Hannah, the mother of Shemuel. Now remember, she's barren, right? She is really asking, right, for Yahweh to give her seed, right? And so this is what she's praying, when she's sorrowful, spirit, sorrowful of heart, or like hard. Her spirit is like rough, what she was going through. And now the high priest, remember, it's on that word of the high priest, right? Al debar, right? On the word, right? Al debaro. He says, go in peace, right? And the Elohei Yisrael grant, right, your petition. So notice that the high priest, even if the high priest wasn't really a perfect person, but because of in that service for the people, Yahweh had ordained that's like when the priest says you're forgiven, priest says such and such, it is that way, right? Yahweh, he will co-sign it. So notice what happens here. Eli, the high priest who has two bad sons, and the woman who's come to pray, she don't have a seed, right? And her sister wife, well, there was some little problems in the family, jealousies and everything else. Now she comes during the time, the feast, the festival, to pray, but she can't even put out her words. Her lips are moving, right? And therefore, Eli think, right, the high priest, Eli think, oh, she drunk. I'm like, why you come here drunk, And she said, no, 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 no. And then he said, okay, maybe I misread the situation. So go in peace. And the Elohim of Israel grant your petition. Did Eli hear the petition? No, he just grant your petition that thou hast asked of him. Right? And she said, may thy handmaid find grace in thy sight. So the woman went her way and did eat, and her countenance was no more sad. Because in a sense, right, because of what the priest even said, her praying there to Yahweh and what he said, notice she got seed. That was Shemuel. Samuel would come and clean up the priesthood, right? He would clean it up because his two sons, right, Hophni and Phinehas, well, as Vaughn Benjamin said in one of his tunes, they were wreaking havoc. They was wreaking. Is that the one that says who shall I send? Right, send me. I think that's well. Anyway, just want to share that right there. It's kind of interesting. So in a sense, by him saying what he said, he's kind of co-signing it. It's like if somebody brought an offering, right? What the priest says would kind of like, kind of bring it to effect or not, right? Basically, of course, Yahweh has the final say, but I'm saying in the office, the role of the priest, right? So when he was saying like, grant your petition, so a petition was have a child, that child to be a Nazarite for life, and this was Shemuel, and yeah, so things got cleaned up, you could say, under Shemuel right there. So here we're still at this opening here, this first verse right here. So the inaudible prayer, like the one that's not heard by any except Yahweh. This was the action of Hannah in 1 Samuel chapter 1, verse 13, to the word where he says, give ear to my words and consider my Hagig, right? The Hagigi, right? Hagigi, my whispering, my musing, that which none but he who he be can hear. So here, to the opening, just the three verses, first of the three, Lamanatziach, Ilha Nechilot, Mizmor LeDavid, Amarai, Hazina, Yahweh, Bina, Hagigi, Bina, consider, right, understand, right, discern all that I'm murmuring on, you figure out, you know the heart to say. So right here, hearken, right, to the voice of my cry, my King and my God, for to thee will I pray. So here, KJV wise, the second verse, right? So let's bring out the Ivrit here. Hak Sheba. Now in Hebrew, there's a couple of words that generally are translated as hear, like to give ear, right? To give ear and hear might sound like the same thing. But when we study, it's specifically certain action, right? And it gives more detail, the HD. You know what I mean? The Hebrew definition, a higher definition. So Hak Sheva. So here we have Kashab. Kashab is to hear, but it's like to prick up the ear, to incline the ear, like really to attend, really pay attention. This sense of this word Hak Sheva, really pay attention, prick up the ear. Not just the Shama here, not just the broaden the ear, but really pay attention. Right? Really pay attention. Hak Sheba Liqala Shawi, right? Hearken to the voice of my shout, Shawi. Now, modern Hebrew, other speakers would say, modern Hebrew, Hak Sheva Liqala Shavi. They'll say Liqal Shavi'i, but the ancient pointing and enunciation is and would have been Hak Sheba Liqal Shawi. My shout, my what? Shawi. Now here they have Sheva, but really it's Shawa. shawa, like shout, my shawati, my shout to thee. That's why they call it a halu, my shout out to you, my yeah. You know, when somebody just shout out, you know, feeling some pain, you gotta. It's like you know, pressure bust pipes. So you got to kind of let it out. My shout. That's from the word shawa. Modern Hebrew they say shava, but actually shawa, shawa. My cry out, shout, my shout, my not my boo hoo hoo hoo, but my shout. Like someone say, help, 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 yeah, yeah. That's a way of like saying help, you know, right? To be free, right? A shout out for freedom. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, like you want to get loose from something, a shout. So we translate it not as the voice of my cry, but the voice of my shout. Hear the voice of my shout. Yeah. Yeah. My shout out. Right. So this is a real shout out. Original shout out. Hakshava lekol shaoi. Malki welhai. Kia leka. Etapalal. Full here, Hak Shabbat, prick up the ears to the sound, the voice, word, sound, power, the call, to the voice, all to the sound, all to the noise of Shawi, my shout, Shawi, my shout, Malki, my Melech, king, Malki, my king, with and Elohai, and my Elohim, with Elohai, Malki, Welahai. Here, Haliai, key, because, why? Remember, this is the command. Hak Shabbat is like pay attention, prick up your ear, pay attention, give heed, incline your ear. Look like you're talking to somebody, really listen to what I'm saying to you. That's that sense. Hak Sheba, Likol Shawi, Malki, Welohai. Malki, my Melech, my king, Malki, my we and Elohai. Malki, Welohai, and my Elohim. What do we have here? Malki, right? Malki is Sedek, Malki, right? Malki, as the subject appeals to his monarch. So I notice here, if this is the time of the Absalom rebellion, that creeping coup, right? Like the Nawai brothers coup back in the 60s. But if this is really like that, right? Check it. Dawid is king, but you know, they're rebelling. They're trying to overthrow the king. They're coming at the king. You know what I mean? And now the king is appealing, right, to the King of Kings, the King of the Kings, right, as a subject, Malki, right? So yeah, Malki Welohai, Haliai, right? Malki as a subject appeals to his monarch to right his cause, right? So Dawid, king, right, is appealing to the King of the Kings, right? Right, to right his cause. He's saying, so, right, I, a king, turn to the King of Kings to justify me, right? To justify I, right here, right here. So the Melech, Malki, and Elohim, my Elohim, right? Why does he call, say, my king? Some people say it's poetical. No, it's specific, right? So he, as the king of Israel, has a king over him, right? Thus the title of the king, the supreme king of kings. In the Hebrew we say he's the supreme king of kings, right? That's even the king of the kings, right? So he's appealing to the King of Kings, and he's saying, Elohai, my Elohim. So when we speak of Elohim in such a context here, in a prayer, right, is turning to Yahweh, right? Yahweh in his role, right? According to the scripts, his role, both as creator, but specifically as judge, right? As judge. That's why he says, ki, because, for, because, eleka, to the I male, etapalal, to the I male will I pray. Etapalal. So here we have the word palal for prayer. Etapalal, I will pray, right? To intervene, to interpose, to pray. But notice when we look at the word palal, right? Palal, right? We have to mediate, right? To understand, like, Hebrew prayer should not be confused with the English word, the Gentile translation. The Gentile translation basically is begging, right? Prayer if you look up the word pray, right, for prayer, right, it's from like to beg, right? Sometimes uncontrollably. It's a lot of it's weird, when we look at the English, the Gentile word prayer. So it doesn't really bring out the Hebraic sense of prayer, right? The Hebraic sense of prayer is a mediation. It's like a judgment. It's like a self-judgment, in a sense, a self-measurement and judgment. It's like self-analysis. This is why the word says, he who turns his ear away from hearing Torah, even his prayer is an abomination.
When I say more, you say fire. More fire.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Nah, man, nah.